All right, welcome, and good evening. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. My name is Philip Ramos, here with our Thriving in Your Strengths interview that we've been doing every Wednesday night and Saturday morning. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're here for the first time, welcome. We do. I love interviewing people. I love interviewing what makes people unique and what makes people fascinating. For those of you that have been here before, you kind of know, kind of the drill and what we're going to be doing tonight. But let me just take a few minutes to introduce myself. My name is Philip Ramos. I'm a coach and trainer for a local Utah company by the name of 3 Key Elements. We're a self-development company that reaches globally, clients and students all over the world, and grateful to be a part of the company itself. I am a Clifton Strengths coach, so Gallup Clifton Strengths coach, and over 90% of Fortune 500 companies use the Clifton Strengths assessment within their teams and organizations. It's been taken over by the assessment itself has been taken by over 27 million people. Over 1,000 universities and colleges nationwide utilize this assessment within their schools and organizations in order to better help students, people understand what motivates them, the way they naturally think, feel, and behave, and what drives their performance. So super grateful to be here with you tonight. Super grateful that you guys are on here tonight. Absolutely love this. Absolutely love this. So let's, before we get started, let me kind of introduce, just a little bit more about me so you guys can get to know the whole picture. That's my beautiful wife here, Melissa, love of my life. Absolutely love her. And she's a major component of why I choose self-development. In fact, let me do this before I keep going, because I think I've had issues with my audio. Can you guys hear me okay? Raise your hand if you can hear me okay. I know that I've had to make some adjustments. Okay, good. Because I know that I've had to make some adjustments with my audio, but if you guys can hear me, then that's perfect. So at any rate, so my beautiful wife, Melissa, she was the major inspirer behind what I do, behind self-development, even behind strengths. She really, she has pushed, I would say, growth on our relationship, on our marriage, throughout our entire marriage. And I'm absolutely grateful for her and what she's done because of that. So she's my biggest, I would say, biggest fan, biggest motivator. A little bit, my family here, you guys can get to know them. These are my beautiful boys, Sebastian and Manolo. So super grateful to have them in my life. Super grateful that, that they've made me who I am in terms of just everything, right? As a parent, even as a husband, no doubt about it. They've influenced my life in more ways than one. And even in strengths, I was having a conversation with my son today. We were driving. So my son is, for those of you that have been following me again, or that enjoy these interviews, my son, my oldest boy right here, he's actually leaving. He starts, he's going to serve a church mission in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And today him and I went to do a very important component of him going on his mission. And we were able to spend quite a few hours together. We talked about strengths. We talked about, him and what makes him unique and what makes him special. And it was a kind of the conversation I never had to have with my parents, with neither one of mine. And so it was really neat to talk to him about that, and see what he sees, right? What does he value and that sort of thing. So it was very memorable, but he'll be starting on Monday. So he'll be starting on Monday, and he's going to be a major hole in our life. He was our third wheel for 7 years, and then we had our second child, Melissa and I. And so that 7-year gap, he was everything. He was, he did everything with us. So we're going to miss him. We're absolutely going to miss him. This is just a little bit about 3 Key Elements. Kirk and Kim Duncan are the president and vice president of 3 Key Elements, and so absolutely grateful to be a part of their mission and what they love and what they love doing and where they're headed. And they've been doing it for a very long time, and not a couple years, but quite a few years, impacting the minds and helping people manage their moods, reach their goals. And so to come on to be a part of this team as a strengths coach, to bring my unique skill set, my unique ability to the table, I feel honored and I feel grateful. Feel absolutely grateful. So by the raise of hands, how many people here have their strengths assessment test? Just so that I'm clear, maybe we can And not that it might change anything, but I just want to make sure. Okay, good, good. So we have a good, so most people here are going to have their strengths assessment. So one of the things I want to do is, as we jump into this, I always try to, do a little bit of help people understand a little bit more about Clifton strengths, or the value of understanding Clifton strengths, before we jump into our interview. And what I like to do is, I just want to start off with this quote by Don Clifton, because I think it's important for people to understand where his come from is, what makes Clifton strengths, what makes strengths. And he was dubbed the grandfather of strengths-based psychology, or positive psychology, because his focus was, and I love this quote, what will happen when we think about what is right with people rather than fixating on what's wrong with them. And ultimately, I think this is a very common thing that people do. We are our biggest critics, right? We critique ourselves. We belittle maybe our efforts, what we do. We dismiss some of what makes us great, because we don't celebrate it. We don't always recognize, right? We don't always pay attention to it. And even sometimes we're not even aware of it. Like, we're really not aware of what we're naturally good at, right? When I talk about strengths, and I mean what we're naturally good at, so when I talk about strengths, right? Strengths is talent multiplied by experience, time, and investment, right? That's what makes a strength. So up until that point, we have these natural talents, we have these natural abilities, we have these things that we do that we can see, oh, I'm pretty good at this, right? I'm pretty okay at this. What we're looking to do is take those things and turn them into strengths, right? By the energy that we put in, by the investment that we put in, the time, the experience. So what I want to do is, I want to help people see what strengths is, so you're very clear on what strengths, what strengths and the result that we want to achieve with strengths. Okay, so when we go about understanding strengths, and I'm talking Clifton strengths here. Okay, what we're doing is we're taking the way we naturally think, feel, and behave to drive our performance and our results. So that's very different from a personality assessment. Most people that have taken other personality assessments are just based on that, right? What is their personality and how maybe they interact, maybe they, how they're unique, what's different about them, how do they approach, different things, how do they learn? The major difference between Clifton strengths and other assessments, Hogan, Myers-Briggs, Kolbe, and you can look up different articles where they're actually comparing these two. And the main theme behind Clifton strengths, which is why it's used by over 90% of Fortune 500 companies, is because it drives people's performance and it drives their results. Those are the two driving factors of what Clifton strengths exposes to people that take the assessment. You take the way you naturally think, feel, and behave to drive your performance and results. That's it, bottom line. Because ultimately, we all want to be more successful. We want our in every area of life, our jobs, our relationships, careers, really everything. Maybe we're becoming an entrepreneur, right? Everywhere we want to drive our performance and our results. And the way you naturally think, feel, and behave has a major determining factor on that. And when people don't explore that, you're missing out on a huge component of this idea of authenticity. How many of you lately have been watching or listening, and we hear this, it gets thrown out all the time, right? Authenticity. I want to be more authentic. I want to be more genuine. I want to be more true to myself. I want to be more, I want to engage in what I do authentic. I feel like I can't be authentic, right? These are common statements or things that people are looking for. They want to own who they are, but they don't always know what drives their performance and their results in the way they think, feel, and behave. Okay, so this is what the Clifton Strengths Assessment does, is not from a personality standpoint, not how you learn, not not the color you are or the best way to dress, right? We've talked about different things as I've done in other comparisons. What we're talking about here is specifically performance and results. What drives your performance and what drives your results? Those two components are absolutely massive, not a little bit. They're absolutely massive, okay? In terms of reaching your goals and doing what you think. And with inside that, what I do is I help people find their motivators and their needs. And that's a whole nother topic that I've touched on quite a few times. So what I want to do is I want to just cover real quick, with inside of the performance assessment, you have 4 different domains, and inside those domains, you have 8 different talent themes. And we'll kind of go through a little bit. This is when I bring on our guest today, when I bring on Mary. But number one is you have an executing theme, and executing is all about how we get things done. Okay, has 100% to do with how you get things done. So how you accomplish things, how you move things. Okay, the next is relationship building, and very much that. So the talents and themes within here have everything to do with how you engage in relationships, how do you build relationships, and what are the components within that motivate you and drive you to performance and results. Influencing, okay, influencing. How are you as an influencer, and are you motivated by influencing? Do those types of things motivate your ideas, your perceptions? Strategic thinking is the other 4th domain. Now, what Gallup has done through Gallup's research, okay, and they're actually the #1 data analytic company in the world. In fact, most people know them by the World Poll. So they pool an incredible amount of information, people, in order to really get a very accurate assessment of what drives people's performance and results. Now, how they came about this, these are 4 of the main categories, that you will, that drive a successful team. Okay, so when you look at a team and the results that a team can have near perfect results every single time when they have some level of executing, relationship building, influence, and strategic thinking, ideas, concepts, characteristics going on inside of that team to drive. If the team was constantly just driving, pure executing, getting things done, they would be lacking a lot of success because they're lacking a lot of other components which make things possible, right? Which drives results and performance. So the purpose of this is to help you understand what are within the team. Let's say you were involved in a team. What are maybe some of the more heavily weighted themes, heavily weighted domains that might drive your success? You may be more driven as more executing or relationship building or influencing or strategic thinking. Now, one thing that you will learn as we go through this is you're a little bit of everything. You do have combinations of little different things. Some of you may have very low of one particular category. Some of you may have very high of one particular category, or a combination of everything. The purpose is to look at what drives your performance and what are some of the key components or categories or themes, talents within each one of these domains to make you successful, to make you a key component in what drives this, okay? So strengths is really, this is why I love it so much, is because it really is driven about performance and results. This has nothing to do with the color you may look best in, or really, or your personality, which really affects you, right, is affected by your personal reality. It's not necessarily by learning. It's not necessarily by who you should, date or anything like that. This is all about performance and results, and within any role, okay, within any role. So with that being said, in the search for authenticity, I want you to think about, as we go through this, I want you to really think about the importance of understanding who you are and the importance of being grounded in who you are, okay? So if you, when you clearly know from an authentic perspective, this is who I am, and this is what makes me great, this is what makes me amazing, you can then mold everything around you, right? You can mold your job, your relationships, marriage, parenting, coaching, entrepreneurship, all these different things. When we're not grounded and we don't do that, what happens is we mold ourselves around. We are up here molding ourselves around, right? Being a spouse, being a parent. As we grew up, as we grow up, I didn't know what it was like to be a spouse. I didn't know what it was like to be married. So where did I learn that? I learned that from watching other marriages, didn't I? I didn't bring my authentic self to my marriage. I was watching other people, and I molded myself around this idea of marriage, or this idea of parenting, or this idea of being a coach, or this idea of being an entrepreneur. It wasn't until I became super solid with who I am that I allowed the molding to happen around who I was. Okay. So I want to demonstrate something here to show you this as we continue. This right here is what is important as we search for authenticity. We're looking to anchor who we are authentically. Does that make sense? We want to anchor the way we naturally think, feel, and behave, like super solid anchor. When we're not anchored to the way we naturally think, feel, and behave to a level of understanding, then it's easy for us to float out here and become the parent that I need to be, the parent that I see other parents being, and now I'm in comparison. Or, oh, I need to float over here and be a spouse. What does it look like for me to be a spouse? What does it look like? Oh, now I'm comparing myself to other spouses, right? Other wives, other husbands. Oh, I manage people, and I'm floating over here into managing people. And what do other managers do? What do they do that's great? What do they do that's not great? How do I model them? How do I duplicate them, right? And now we're in this idea of duplicating people, not results. We want to duplicate their efforts. We want to duplicate people. How do I, oh, this friend, this entrepreneur, this coach. Does that make sense? We easily float around because we are not anchored to our authentic selves. That, my friends, is very clearly what Clifton Strengths Assessment can do. It can teach you and anchor you to your authentic way of being so that coaching is in line with you. Does that make sense? Managing is in line with you. Being a spouse is in line with you. Being a parent becomes in line with you. Being a friend becomes in line with you. Being an entrepreneur becomes in line with you. Does that make sense? You want to surround yourself with these things, not float out here to reach them, float out here to mold, float out here to model, float out here to compare, float out here to duplicate. Does that make sense? Raise your hand if this makes sense. I want to make sure this is super clear. This is the value of knowing the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. It doesn't matter the role, does not matter the role. When you are anchored in who you are, in the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, these things, you do these things naturally. You do these things authentically. But when you are not anchored in who you are, and these things are out here like this, you are floating and you're becoming the person you need to be in the moment. Oh, I need to be this person. I need to be this person. Oh, I need to be this person. I need to be this person. And we're constantly shifting. And we're constantly comparing. And we're constantly wishing. And we're constantly trying. And we're constantly self-betraying. We're self-betraying all over the place because we don't know where, we're not finding our authentic selves. Does that make sense? We're not finding what makes us authentic. We're not finding what rings true with us. We're constantly floating from space to space to space to space to space to space to try to be these people because we need to be these people, right? We need to still be spouses. We still need to be parents, friends, entrepreneurs, coaches, managers, whatever it may be, whatever the role you're trying to play. Doesn't really matter what the role is. But when you aren't anchored, solidly anchored in who you are, you're going to constantly shift. You're going to constantly mold. You're going to constantly try to duplicate someone, duplicate what makes them great, instead of looking at the results and saying, how can I get the results and still stay authentic to myself? So discovering authenticity is more crucial than ever. And this is where, again, Clifton Strengths Assessment can come into play, is it shows you the way you naturally think, feel, and behave. It demonstrates to you what motivates you, what motivates your performance, what drives your performance. So in this case, as I bring on Mary, so let me pull her up here. 1 second. Hold on, Mary. Let me promote you. While she's coming on, I want to go back to this, okay? While I'm having her switch over here, give me 1 second. And should be, there she is. There she is. Make her a co-host so she could turn on her camera. All right, perfect. So what I want to show you here is, let me go back to this real quick. Hello, Mary, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. So what I want everyone to see here is when we look at this, we're going to start to look at individual themes, right? Restorative, learner, individualization, ideation, relator. These are all these different themes, and we'll talk about this, are what motivate her performance and what motivate her results. Knowing those things, knowing how you operate dramatically impacts the roles that you play when you're playing them authentically. So being the manager, being the coach, being the spouse, being the parent, being the friend, being the entrepreneur is much easier for you, more authentic for you when you know what grounds you, when you know what anchors you, when you know what holds you in your space, so that you are not floating out here in the abyss of trying to be everything everybody else needs you to be. The value of knowing your authentic way of achieving results, driving performance, can absolutely dramatically affect how you show up in all of these roles authentically, genuinely, and more important, consistently. Like, that's what we want. I don't want to be I can't just be a good spouse today, right? I got to be a good spouse 7 days a week, 24/7, right? Or a manager, a coach. I want to be great at who I am and what I do all the time, not just when it's convenient. All right. So that's super, super important. Super, super important. So with that being said, I'm super excited to have here. I'm going to show you her. Let me bring on her slide so everybody can take a look at her results here. Good evening, Mary. How are we doing today?
Good, how are you?
Doing fantastic. Doing fantastic. So thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
You are welcome. I'm gonna put my earbuds in here. Focus on you. There we go.
I love it. I love it.
So today was an exciting day for you.
It was a big day for me. Not just an exciting day. It was an absolutely monumentous, massively big day. And it was fun to, as I talk about these things, as I think about, right? Now that you bring it up, I was literally thinking about when I was in the car with my son. We spent all that time together. We were doing things together. We went and attended some things together. And this entire time I'm thinking about, my relationship strengths, my influencing strengths, myself.
Audio problems.
Hello? You there? Mary? Uh-oh, did we lose her? Mary? Yeah, I'll finish. Hopefully she comes on. So to answer Mary's question, it gave me a chance really to think about myself as a parent. It really gave me a chance to think of myself as how I was engaging in my son, and how am I, right? How am I playing this role as the parent in myself? Am I just shifting to where I need to be, or am I solid in who I am and playing that parent role, right? Playing that role in his life. I also had a chance to play a coach in his role. He's very well, he knows his strengths. In fact, we were talking about him this morning in the car, and one of the things he said was, he's like, Dad, can we go over my strengths before I actually go on a mission, so that I can make sure that, I want to do this stuff in my strengths? And I'm like, absolutely. Absolutely. So that was really neat. So anyways, thank you for asking the question, because it gave me a chance to talk about, right, this very thing within the way I've realized I had to do it, so that I'm not shifting out of who I am, but more importantly, I'm pulling into what I do into who I am. Okay. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, very cool.
Okay, so with that being said, so let me introduce Mary here. So she's a life coach, mentor, speaker, presenter, advocate, and retired paramedic firefighter. I like that. That's big time. So she's married to an absolute stud by the name of Rusty. Met the guy. They actually came to my very first live strengths event. And so that was super cool. That was my first time having a chance to actually physically meet them, face to face. So that was fun. They had participated in a program with me before. They have 3 young children, and absolutely love loves her kids, and deals with a lot of just different dynamics as she's as she's a provider for her. So it's Zebra, right? Zebra and special challenge. Zebra.
Yep.
A zebra.
So yeah, so that has to do with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which I've got to put a shout out for all of my zebras out there, which is where it's just a big community. And if there's any others on here, woohoo, go zebras. So
I love it. I love it. So what are your kids? What are your kids' names?
So we have Addie, who is our oldest, and then we have Brian, and then we have Courtney, and all three of them have presented us with some unique challenges that have been really interesting to get through, but I wouldn't have it any other way.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So tell me, so sum up, like, what would you say you do great? Tell me, what do you think you do great? What's amazing about you?
Everything.
That's very humble. I like it. I like it. Besides everything.
Other than everything. What's great about me is my ability to relate to other people, to understand their point of view. Once I can kind of get in their space and understand their point of view, I'm pretty easily able to tap into what's going on in the world and help them find a solution, come up with ideas to whatever problem is plaguing them. And oftentimes they think that it is something, a very surface level something, and I can see the wheels turning in the background, and it's very much not. And so once we're able to solve what's going on in the background, everything else just falls into alignment.
I love that. I love that. Super cool. Super cool. Okay, so let's dive into some strengths conversations here. So first off, what was your first initial take on, because I remember our conversation, right? I had called you up, you'd received an email, we made a connection, set an appointment, I called you up and talking to you about what I do, and then I invited you to take an assessment. So when that happened, what was your initial thoughts of this idea of taking an assessment? Good, bad? What were you thinking?
So it was a mixed bag. It was, I have learner and I have restorative, and so I can see the problems and everything. And so it was very much a mixture of excitement because I want to learn. And hey, this is really cool. And it was also like, yeah, okay, we'll see how right this is. But more, I guess it was more excitement than it was anything else. I think it was more, okay, let's see if this works was, can I take this to my husband? Because we had tried so many things for us to be able to connect in different ways. Because we've been struggling with the same challenges because he's a stud and I'm super cool. But us together, we had our challenges, just like every marriage, right? And so at that time, not only was I thinking about it to try to build my business and clientele and stuff like that, but I really saw it as a, this, if it works, could really be a game changer. If I can bring my husband on, this could be the missing piece.
Love it. I love it. Well, now that you opened up that can of worms, I'm going to go down that road in a little bit because I think that's amazing. I think that's amazing. Okay. So I like that because that's honest. I have to say, often the biggest sell is even getting someone to take the assessment, right? And that's not even the big part. That's not even the hard part, right? But getting someone to actually sit down where they're willing to take 40 minutes of their time to figure out, to see the value of why should I understand the way I naturally think, feel, and behave. What would this do for me? How would this interact? So I love that.
It was more than that even. It was being able to define, well, what do you mean the way I naturally think, feel, and behave? I know how I think, feel, and behave. I'm in my own head, right? So what is this? Right. So it was more of understanding what that even addresses,
right.
And how powerful it could be. I had no idea how powerful it could be. I thought it was going to be a fun thing and would probably benefit us, but I had no idea to the extent.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So you take the assessment, did the assessment, you're looking at your results. Now what? Like you, so your first initial impression, what did you think?
Oof. Once again, I'm always a mixed bag, right? So I was super excited to have the assessment. I was super excited to see the answer. I started kind of reading through it and I went, well, I thought I had that one higher. Well, I thought I was actually good at this other thing. Like, what do you mean I'm not? Well, what's wrong with me then? Right. And then I realized, well, right, because I didn't know what restorative meant. Right. And so I saw all the problems in not being the things that I wasn't.
Yes.
Right. And so I think that I kind of had a little bit of a hard time with it. Some of the stuff I'm like, yes, that pegs me on the head, that pegs me on the head, that pegs me on the head. And then there was definitely some of it where it was like, and I'm glad that we went into detail. I'm glad you told us to go into detail on it, because my husband has some similar strengths that I thought, oh, look, here's proof that we, just like you know, that we think the same.
Right.
And we don't.
Yeah.
But after getting into it, it was night and day.
Yeah, I like that. You know, I think that that's what most people. So we see this assessment, for example, here. Let me pull your assessment back up, so one can see right here. When we look at the word, for example, we see restorative, or we see learner, or we see relator, and then we see our spouses or our friends or whatever, and we make the assumption, oh, we are the same, or we have 5 in the top 10 that are the same, or we have 2 in the bottom that are the same. And so we make the assumption that, right, that we are the same. But really, if there's anything that this assessment approves, if there's anything that this assessment proves more than anything, is how complex and how unique we are. Because even though you may have something similar to your husband or similar to someone else, it's the combination of everything else that makes that particular talent so different and so unique. And so often people miss out on that. They take the assessment, they look at it, they read it, and then they make whatever, their own assessment of, hey, this word or this thing or this color. And they don't take the time to really dive into what it is, which creates that opportunity, right? Which creates that dialogue, which creates those conversations. And then awareness, like what you were saying, thinking, oh, me and Rusty are similar. No, never mind. We are polar opposite at the same time, right?
Yeah, same strength can really be almost polar opposite in the way that you execute it because of the supporting strengths around it.
Yes, I like that. Very, very well said. Very, very well said. So now, what over the course of you actually reading your assessment, looking at your assessment, what do you think has really kind of stood out? Like, what do you think is like, wow, like I do this really great. I do this really well.
Can I say all of it?
There you go.
No, I think that the thing that I have come to realize is how powerful and amazing restorative is, right? I am super grateful that I have that, and I'm super grateful that I have the supporting strengths to be able to find where not only my holes are and my husband's holes are and whatnot, but then I have the ability to come up with ideas and solutions and tweak them and implement them to be just right for that person. I'm super grateful for my ideation, right? I am never left guessing. When I was a paramedic and a firefighter, my nickname was MacGyver, right? Because they're like, put Joyner, well, that was my maiden name, put Joyner out there with, a pocket knife, some IV tubing, and a cardboard box, and she'll save anybody, right? Which was very flattering. And I definitely wore that, right up here on my shoulder. But as I look at it now, I guess I realize that it doesn't limit me unless I let it limit me, right? And so when I'm able to take it and fly with it, it's just, it feels like a superpower.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know, one thing that you mentioned on top of your, I'm going to pull this up because I want, one thing that you mentioned is, as you were talking about your restorative, you also mentioned that you know exactly what's right for them, right? And that is
Yeah.
definitely very much someone that has high individualization, is they're able to customize, and see the level of customization that this person may need versus this person, but the value that this person's going to gain from it versus this person, the connection that this person will see versus this person. And so I love that just the way you described that, that is definitely a lot of individualization in that restorative, even from the very get-go. When I asked you, well, what do you love to do, is, helping people, right, understand within them, and I think that that's great. It sounds like that's something that obviously that combination you do very well.
Oh yeah, I love my individualization, but it's also the thing that I struggle with the very most.
Is it?
It is definitely the thing that I struggle with very most. I definitely love it. It makes me amazing at what I do. It makes me hell to clean with. It makes me hell to, going out to dinner with me can sometimes be an interesting experience, or trying to make a choice on something. I see all the choices and I want to individualize everything. Right. And so that can be the struggle. But once again, it's like, man, I'm grateful for it because I can individualize everything.
Yeah.
You want something individualized for a party? Great. You want a recipe that's individualized? Great. You want your life to be individualized? Great. Your business, your movie, whatever. I will sit down and I can probably 15, 20 minutes after talking to you, individualize it for you. And I will pretty much, within a certain scale of accuracy, know which steps you will take and which steps you won't take.
That's awesome. It's great to, I love that you're so confident in, obviously, and there's that level of restorative. I can hear your restorative. I definitely hear your individualization, but also knowing that is also what hinders you. Because so often, right, people, it's very easy for us to, especially when we get in this strengths mode, we can, our achiever, our ideation, woo, positivity, we could at any point in the game, we either, it's a trick that we have to learn to play with. We either undervalue what motivates us, in this case, your individualization, or we overdo it and it pushes people away. It pushes opportunities away. It
causes problems in marriage.
What do you say?
Causes problems in marriage.
Oh, 100%, right? 100%. I mean, I said a million times what my positivity has done for my marriage, in a good way, but also in a way that it hurts me. And so I think that this is one of the things that goes back to, kind of what I was showing the diagram before, of being anchored into who you are. When we are not anchored into who we are and understanding what do we do great, but also what do we do bad, we float into, hey, I'll try to be this parent or this, well, you're doing it, you're successful. And so we model it, we duplicate it. We were like, oh, I'm going to try this. And we unanchor and unhinge ourselves from the very things that ground us: individualization, restorative, these key components. And we're just, it's like we're reacting.
Yeah, well, and it also, people can tell that something is off. Right. You're not acting from your own strengths. You're not trying to claim who you are, and it feels icky. Right. That's when you get that used car salesman feel. Right. That's when you get the creepy guy on the date feel. Right. That's right. That's when you get the teacher, that there's something just a little, like, I know you're a good teacher, but I don't know what's going on here because it's not being very effective.
Yeah.
And it's because they're not operating from the way that they naturally operate from. And when you shut that off, you interrupt the flow of intuition and inspiration and you know, anything that would have come from you out of greatness, it kind of interrupts that. But then if you do somehow make it to the greatness, then that's when you have that imposter syndrome
Yeah.
almost, because, oh, but it wasn't me that did it,
Right.
right? It was just, I was copying somebody else's steps. And when you claim that authenticity, when you claim that individualization, when you claim that, that part that you played that was significant, then when you get to the end and you're a big deal, or you're successful, or you've written your book, or you've gotten your degree, or you've whatever it is, you can go, yes, I did that.
And that's
Right.
that's one thing that I know that I've loved in working with you, is you have been, that has been a passion for you, right? Authenticity, not just discovering your own, but empowering other people to own theirs, right? Empowering other people to embrace theirs, empowering other people to see the value of it. So I love that obviously, I mean, you come from a space of, number one, wanting to know yours, but also at the very same time trying to make sure that people understand the value of theirs. And I think that that's such go ahead.
There's also like, it's the Clifton Drinks, or Clifton, the father of Clifton Drinks. What was his first name?
Don Clifton.
Yeah, Don Clifton. It was a quote that you use quite a bit that talks about, when you know your own strengths, you can start to see other people's strengths and appreciate what is different about them, right? Yes. I thought that I had appreciated what was different about other people, right? My children are different, right? Brian is on the autism spectrum. We were told that he was going to be very challenged for his entire life. And I watched, and that's one of the reasons that I was super passionate about authenticity, is because I watched him develop in a very authentic way, without all of this like crap from the outside influencing his choices. And I thought it was really fascinating the way that he was developing, because it wasn't anything that I put in there. Right. And so after, I thought that I appreciated him. And then after taking this, I thought, oh, okay, well, that makes sense why that person does this and this person does that. And then I went through your program, right, with the AIM program, right, where it was a group program and whatnot. And then, I was lucky enough to be mentored by you, which if anybody can do that, holy crap, life-changing. I'm just going to put that plug in because holy crap. No, but on this side of it, looking back, I had no idea what it was like to really appreciate other people for their strengths.
Wow.
Right. Ooh, I'm gonna cry. Because without it, it's like, you try to put this puzzle of humanity together, right? You try to put this puzzle of life and purpose and support together, and you go, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work without every single one of those strengths, without somebody being at the top of every single one of those strengths, right? I said that backwards. Without somebody having every single one of those strengths as their top strength, right? And every single combination of it doesn't work. And so on this side of it, and learning more about people and learning the interactions that the different strengths do with each other to support each other has been eye-opening and incredible.
Gosh, Mary, thank you so much for bringing that up, because that is probably my favorite part. It's why I became a strengths coach, 100%. When I realized, and you talked a little bit about your husband, and since you opened it up, we're going to talk about that in a second. But for me, it wasn't until I actually saw my wife's report, and the quote so that everybody knows, the quote that Mary's talking about is this quote here that I share from Don Clifton, is as you begin to think seriously about the unique constellation of talents that you have, you recognize that other people each have their own unique combination of talents as well. You begin to see them through a different lens. The things that used to annoy or irritate you are now seen as the very things that make the other person successful. and well, productive and successful. And I love here about this. You know how many times I felt annoyed, irritated, frustrated, why can't you see it my way? Why aren't you, all these different things. And ultimately realizing after reading my wife's report, I was like, oh my gosh, and me and my wife have 6 of the same talents, 6 of 6. So sorry, out of our top 10, 6 of them are the same for me and my wife. So you would think, right? Oh my gosh, we're like, 2 peas in a pod. Yeah. We're 2 peas in a pod when we want to be. We're, you know what I mean? When other things in life happens or dynamics or whatever, it's real stuff. And so it just goes to show this. So this right here, what you're talking about is why I became a strengths coach. It fascinated me. If my wife, who is this similar to me, yet this different, how does that make Mary? And how does that make Kirk? Or how does that make this person or that person or this person? And what does it look like for me to build a relationship with them? And I just absolutely have loved that component. I love that piece because like I never really truly, I didn't ask enough questions. That's the truth. Honest truth. I did not ask enough questions, even as a coach, as a mentor, as a friend, as a father, as a husband. I didn't ask because I was going at the situation the way I naturally think, feel, and behave. I was assessing the situation. I was assessing their feelings. I was doing all these different things. And the moment I had to swallow this massive pill in saying, okay, if I'm this unique, I'm 1 in 33 million, holy cow, that means there's a lot of other different people in here. And I better start asking better questions. And that completely changed. And so now going into relationships or ideas or things, I want to know the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, because it's going to drive whatever your results or performance. So I just loved it. That obviously that has resonated with you as well. That's beautiful. That's awesome, Mary.
Yeah, I think, one of the things that you said there, within a relationship, and even within
especially within a group dynamic,
if you don't know the strengths and you don't know how that person thinks, it's very easy
to get offended.
Oh yeah.
It's very easy to be misunderstood
and to misunderstand. And so I really don't know how I functioned on teams before, but before Clifton Strengths, and I look around me and I'm like, you guys need to get some Clifton, for real.
That's great.
Yes.
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So how are you utilizing? So knowing that, right? So now the value of your strengths. Now the value of other people's strengths. You understand these ideas and concepts. How are you utilizing your strengths? How are you utilizing just in your everyday life? How are you finding success with it? How are you going about it as a mom, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, as everything that you do?
Okay. Fun story.
This morning, I was able to help my husband, who was having a really hard time with an assignment at work. And so his number one, and he's okay with me sharing, by the way, I asked, his number one is harmony, right? So he likes for things to work, and to work right, and to be even, and to be just exactly the way that you said that they were going to be, right? And so his boss had given him an assignment, very clear. He went out, he started doing the assignment, right? He was happy about it. Come to find out that assignment wasn't really what his boss said it was going to be. It was 10 times bigger.
Oh, man.
Because the things that were going to lead up to being able to do that assignment hadn't been done yet. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll have you do those too.
Right.
Right. So he also has restorative really high. And so his brain went,
I see the problems.
Yes. And it's my job to fix all of them.
Right.
And with harmony, that can be really hard.
when there's not a scaffolding to build on. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to fix this one and this one and this one, but there wasn't any kind of order or anything else. And he also has Learner in his, super brilliant man, right? But it was really cool that I was able to listen to him and see where he was going with it. When he was telling me what his struggle was. And I was like, you know what, babe, I've actually had that thought like 24/7 for 30 something years. And so I was able to say, okay, this is how we organize it, right? How do we build from this to create this space of harmony, right? How do we apply what we know to create a space of harmony so that you have something to refer back to say, this is solid ground. Now let me add things in, right? And so it was really cool to be able to help him make the task or the assignment, the job, less daunting and more exciting. Because once he does that, I mean, trust me, I do not envy him, right? He's a software engineer, and like, no, like, I think I stopped at like high school math. I'm good. But it helped him to find a way to organize it, to alleviate some of that stress. And I just watched as he still had a big weight on his shoulder, but it wasn't crushing. It wasn't debilitating. Right. And so that took us, a 5-minute conversation, where before I would have been like, well, yeah, I mean, you see one problem and then you go through and you create a bunch of lists with all of the problems. And then you just tackle one of the lists at a time. And then you do this and you do this. And that's the way my brain works. Right. And then I would have been frustrated when he was like, well, now I'm even worse. And so it was really cool to be able to say, oh, yeah, well, this is where you're coming from. This is your struggle. Now let me help take some of the burden and some of the stress off of it. And by the way, since I know that you're struggling with that, let me take some of this other stuff off of your plate that I can help with, right? So you don't need to do this. Well, you don't need to do this. So I can take those things and I can do those things so that our family still stays within harmony, instead of being like, well, I got crap to do too. It's like, okay, I understand.
Oh my gosh.
I think that was one of the things.
So good. So good. I love it. So good. Mary, so for those, and for those of you that don't know, to understand the value of understanding harmony, the basement of harmony is chaos. For people that have harmony, he has it at number 1, right?
Oh, yes.
So harmony, so for the more and more you guys know, the higher the talent, the higher the strength, the higher the motivation, the higher the need, the more it has to be addressed. So here Mary is.
And the lower, the more debilitating.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, right. So here Mary is recognizing her husband, knowing this, right? So, and I love this. I'm going to go back to this because she's taken this to heart. She sees him different than herself, because she knows, hey, I'm this person, you're this person, but I know what your needs are. I know what motivates you, even though in the past I did the list, I did the wait, you didn't get it? You're annoying, you're irritating, right? I'm frustrated.
Well, I'm frustrated because you just need to do more, or you just need to stick up for yourself and say, yeah, I'm going to do it this way. Yeah. Right. Which is, don't tell somebody with harmony to rock the boat. Like, that's just not a good idea.
So here you are telling him, knowing what he needs and what motivates him, and helping him solve the chaos. That is such a beautiful, and again, this isn't, obviously this wasn't your mentoring client, this is your husband, right? But knowing our the strengths within our relationships, whether they're clients, whether they're spouses, whether they're kids, we can dramatically understand why they're struggling with what they're struggling, or what motivates processes. And you were able to really hone in, individualize, right? Your individualization. Here you go, and you see the situation, you go,
and relate. I'm able to put myself in his shoes.
Yes. Great
Yeah.
job. Phenomenal job, Mary. That is what a beautiful, and I'm telling you, so in more ways than one. I have a new client that I'm starting to work with, and this her goal is actually to become a certified strengths coach. And so she's going to work with me, and then she's going to get certified. And so one of the things as I've worked with people, I'm always fascinated and love when people are going down the strengths route. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think it's such a compliment to what they're doing. So
It's fun. Yeah.
right. So I love hearing that you're actually utilizing these ideas and these concepts within your own clients, your marriage, and that's really, and that's the goal. It's one thing for us to understand. It's one thing for me to sit here and teach strengths. The moment my webinar is done, I click end and I go off, and I don't implement any strengths within my home, my relationship, my kids, right? Outside of things that I'm just Philip the strengths coach here, or woo here, positivity here, but not actually out there. But out there is where the impact.
Even worse, if you know
who you are and you throw it in everybody's face. Well, don't talk to me like that. I'm this way. Right?
But not take into account
who they are, right? This strengths does not give you a hall pass to be who, the basement of who you are,
So
right?
Is that what you're saying?
What?
It's not a one-way street? It's not a one-way highway?
It's not nope, sorry.
Right?
Get off the highway if it's a one-way road, get off the highway, you're gonna get run over.
Absolutely.
And so it has definitely been very impactful. I've been able to do situations like that with my sister. My mom hasn't taken the assessment. I'm still working on her, but I can kind of pick up on some of the strengths that she's got going on. It's definitely helped me in several business relationships. And so it's just empowered me to see solutions that I wouldn't have seen before, because I'm able to relate. And once I can relate, I can see where the holes are for them and where the priorities might be for them. Because my priorities are going to be very different than Rusty's priorities, right? My priorities are very different than my sister's priorities, than your priorities. And, my purpose in life is very different than yours and Rusty's and whatnot. And so that actually has been one of the coolest things, has been, how strengths has unlocked finding that purpose, right? Strengths has empowered me to achieve or to go after that purpose. Strengths has given me the ability to not be offended when other people are like, oh, well, that's a dumb purpose.
Yeah.
Right. Or whatever it is, right? So I've been able to let go of a lot of the things from the past, because it works for the past too, right? I mean, if I knew that my, strengths one of my top 10 is significance, right? And so if somebody comes in and steals something, or I created something and they take credit for it, well, that's a huge deal for me, right? It's not just that's a jerky thing to do, right? That's a big deal for me. But everybody else is like, well, just let it go. Yeah. Just let it go, right? And now I know why, right? Now I have the why, so I can heal. So I think that's been the other really powerful thing, is that it's given me the ability to understand and heal from some of my past.
So let's talk about that real quick, because this is where you mentioned a little bit about the struggle of the individualization, but I love where you're headed with this, where you're talking about, because each strength, right, going back to that significance, if someone were to do that to me, like you said, versus you, I may be able to forgive, move on, roll on. But for you, that's because there's a need there, there's a motivation there. And so like what you said, that healing process. So there are, as much as we want, and as much as we know that strengths motivates our behavior, it motivates our performance, it motivates our results. At the same time, there are specific needs, and there's specific wants, and there's specific things that
what drives you. Yeah.
there's some hindrances there. So is it just inside of your, for example, do you find it just inside of your significance, or are you noticing within combination of talents or all your talents that there is some level of struggle?
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Well, and it's even
if you go back to, competition or some of the other things that are low on my strengths report, but were expectations of me.
Okay. Now it makes sense why
I wasn't motivated by that, and somebody else held that against me, and I'm like, well, I don't understand why you're holding it against me. I don't understand why this is such a big deal. Like, competition isn't good. We're supposed to all be friends, right? I don't actually believe that, but to a certain extent. Kumbaya. It has definitely helped me see every one of my relationships within my family, within my friends, and understand the places where I thought that I had failed or that other people have maybe failed me. I'm able to put some sense to it.
I love that.
Really powerful. Yeah.
Well, and some clear awareness, right? I teach that we talk a lot about some awareness, understanding, because truthfully, and in everything in life, here we are, we're trying to be better parents, entrepreneurs, coaches, whatever we're trying to be, right? Relationships, make more money, build a better life, whatever it may be. And as we constantly hit this wall, if we're not aware of what that wall is, the cost really is we're just going to hit it again and again and again and again and again and again. Because
you're going to beat yourself bloody.
Exactly, right? Because we don't know why it's there. And we can say it's fear, we can say it's shame, we can say it's embarrassment, we can say it's a lot of things. And you've worked with me long enough that often the very thing that's in our way is the very thing that motivates us, is the very thing that needs to be fulfilled, is the very thing. I love your example with Rusty. Here Rusty is, his number one need in this harmony, and his boss doesn't know this. So here sets him up for failure and not recognizing, hey, I'm going to set Rusty up to win because I know harmony is important to Rusty. So I'm going to create an environment where he can thrive. Instead, Rusty is set up for failure. And sometimes we don't know why we're hitting the wall, right? In this case, it was Rusty's, harmony being affected because of all the chaos and lack of organization and lack of all these different things. And if we look at that example, that has costed us time, money, energy, relationships 1,000 times.
Satisfaction.
And not just one time, right? Time and time and time and time again. And all it took was for you to recognize, oh, I see what's wrong, honey. I see what you need, and I see why you're frustrated. Let me help. Let me support. Right. And I think that's such a beautiful example of, it goes back to this. Like, think of this.
Well, and really quick before you even say that,
is that it's given a language and a framework so that it's not offensive.
Right? Like, I like a language and a framework, because previously you're coming at it maybe from, like you said, a restorative perspective. The result,
find the problem. Yeah.
The result is this. The desired result is the same. Hey, honey, I love you. Let me help. They're both the same thing, but it's the language that you're speaking, right? It's the framework you're using versus one. The ultimate desire was still the same. I love you, honey. Let me help you. I love you, honey. Let me help you. But because you understood some different things along the way, you had a completely different result. And that's
an experience along the way.
Yeah, the experience of our communication has dramatically changed, right? Because before it was
me being very open and very direct and very, let's solve it and let me individualize and get down to the nitty gritty of every little action, right? Not quite that bad, but that's what he perceived it as, right? And he was like, I'm trying my hardest. Like, why don't we have harmony? Right? I'm loving you. I'm being of service to you. I am doing this and I'm doing this, and you're still not happy. Like, I don't think that I will ever be enough to satisfy whatever it is that you're looking for. I don't even know what you're looking for. Right. And I would go, well, I don't know what I'm looking for either. And so for us to finally be able to sit down and go, oh, well, this is what I'm looking for right now, right? I'm looking for significance right now, right? Or I'm looking for, an outlet to express my ideas right now, or I just need some problems to be solved right now, right? I just need to relate. I need to be able to talk enough to where I feel like you can put yourself into my shoes. I don't need you to solve. I need you to listen, but that means, can you see it from my viewpoint? Right. And so we're hitting a lot of those top 10s, which they're strengths, but like you said, they're the needs, they're the love languages. I mean, this poor man, we took the love languages test several years back. Yeah. And I scored equally on every single one except for service. And he scored almost exclusively service. You want to talk about a match not made in heaven as far as love languages go, right? So he is just doing and doing and doing and doing and being like this amazing husband, right? And like things that other women are like, your husband does that? I'm like, every day. I didn't even ask him. He's just awesome, right? Because he was showing me love. But at the end of the day, I still felt unfulfilled and empty, right? I still felt disconnected from him. And a lot of it was because he wasn't feeding my needs, which were significance, which were restorative, which were ideation and relator and adaptability and,
and your
other ones,
right? Your own individual needs.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, I don't understand why you get me these, gifts that don't mean anything to me. Yeah. And he's like, well, I'm trying. And then I'll get him something that is like individualized to the core, right? And it is spot on. And he's like, well, I feel like crap. I got you flowers and you got me like this, 1970 something CD from a game that I played in the 5th grade or something, right? I mean, that I have good memories associated with, right? And he didn't need the game, he just needed a hug, right? He just needed me to not bring up crap for a day, right? And so we were both trying our hardest and we just were not gaining a lot of ground. Like it was hard. And we knew that there was nobody else out there for each one of us, right? We knew that we were each other's person, but it didn't make it any easier. And the fact that we didn't have the understanding of strengths was hard. Like it really is night and day to be able to sit down and go, oh, okay. Or, you each have a fight or whatever, and you're able to go, okay, in this disagreement, which one of your strengths are you coming from? Which one of your strengths do you need right now? Because that's going to base a lot of my response to you right now, right? Do you feel like if you get into this, you're going to get over your head because you don't have enough knowledge? Or is this you need someone to serve you because you feel overwhelmed, because you have too much on your plate?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love it. You guys is like your scenario, and I've said this a couple different times to different people because I know their spouses and families have taken the assessment, but you're a wonderful success story of what I think strengths in my eyes, what it's done for me. And I can see, and the value of what it, like you said, it doesn't make anything easier. It just gives us a framework. It gives
knowledge is power.
Yeah. It is. It gives us a little bit more understanding so that we can be more patient, right? So that we can address the situation from a different angle, Right. Ultimately, you still want to help Rusty, but now you're like, oh, wait, this is the kind of help Rusty needs, not this kind of help, right? Kind of thing. And so,
and it's cool because when he's trying to help me, he can he was like, well, this worked last time. Why isn't it working? I mean, same exact situation. Why isn't it working this time?
Yeah.
Well, because I need it from a different strength. I need it from a different need.
Yes.
And there was something that you actually helped me like mind blown a while back. And that was the way that we love and show love and interaction, and even down to like discipline with our children, right? Because I was trying to make everything kind of equal. I was trying to make each one of them feel significant. And so, you know, I was trying to individualize it. Well, this one likes yellow and this one likes purple and this one likes blue. And so I was spending hours trying to make each one of them feel significant, because in that moment I wanted to feel significant.
Yes. Yes.
And I wanted them to know that I was significant because I made them significant.
Yes.
Right. And so I was trying to get back what I was sending out.
Yes.
The problem was that only one of them, they're too young to take these open, but I'm assuming only one of them actually has significance in their top 10.
Right. Yeah.
Well, maybe two, but not in the same way.
Yeah.
And so since then, I have been able to change the language that I use to support them, right? I've been able to change the way that I give them advice, right? So the advice that I would give to Addie, my oldest, is dramatically different from the advice that I would give to Courtney, my youngest. They're only 2.5 years apart, right? So each one of my kids was 15 months apart. But the way that they handle situations is dramatically different. And it was infuriating. It's like, I am parenting you the same way. Like, why am I getting different results?
Yeah.
And why do you know how to handle this and the other one doesn't know how to handle this? Haven't I taught you guys this?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. Because they handle situations very differently and they're supported very differently, right? Where one of them needs me to come to their class and be a big deal, and the other one just needs me to listen after school.
Yeah.
And then the other one needs a spotlight. So.
Yeah. I love that. And then also it removes the expectation, right? Because when we're fulfilling, when we're doing these things and it's our need, we have this unspoken expectation that, oh, this is going to come back, right? I'm giving out positivity because it's my number one. Oh, I'm going to get back positivity from you, right? I'm wooing you right now. You're going to woo me, right? Kind of thing, right? I'm taking action. I'm communicating. So I'm going to get this back any minute now, right? And when we go at these things without understanding the motivations, the needs, we have unspoken expectations, which create enormous wedges, enormous resentment towards the people that we love. And we don't know why we feel this way, because we're giving Rusty, right? He's service. And, you know, seeing it at the other end, or harmony, is wondering, how can we have a harmony, right? And I love that you're seeing that. That's phenomenal. That's, Mary, seriously, in so many ways, you're like the perfect student. Like, you take this information and you're applying it with your kids, your sister, your husband, clients. I know you're working with different clients.
Every relationship.
I love it.
I don't go into a relationship now without going, what are their strengths and how can I best facilitate their success, right? How can we both win? And how do I make sure that I have what I need and that they have what they need?
Love it. That's incredible. And that's knowing who you are authentically, right?
Oh, that's the other thing. It's like, how do you even claim to have authenticity when you don't know what your strengths are? Like, come on, you don't have authenticity. If you're an authenticity coach and you don't use Clifton strengths, then you're not an authenticity coach. I'm sorry.
I love it.
That's cocky of me to say, but
no.
It's what I believe.
Interesting, right? Is that here we are going back to this, and we say, right, I'm a parent, I'm a spouse, I'm a manager, I'm a coach, I'm a friend, I'm an entrepreneur, and we don't know who we are the way we naturally think, feel, and behave, and what we're anchored to. And when we don't know what anchors us, right? You've talked about your restorative, you talked about individualization, you talked about your significance, you talked about your learner, you talked about, and within all of these are needs that need to be fed. fed, needs that need to be fed, things that desires, motivation. And when you're not anchored within those, it's easy to float out of your anchor and into being a coach like someone else might be, or the way someone else might manage, or the way another spouse might react or do, or the way another parent would parent, or friend or entrepreneur. And we float around these things, picking up their habits, picking up the way they do things. And if anything, we lose authenticity when we're not anchored into who we are. So I love that you are obviously aware of that.
If you showed that graphic again,
if you think about it, so many of the people that I have interacted with and that I work with tell me that they are exhausted because they have to wear so many hats, right? I've got my mom hat, I've got my teacher hat, I've got my wife hat, I've got my, whatever hat, right? I'm this, I'm that. And we fill ourselves up to the max with all of these things, thinking that we're going to be fulfilled because we're doing all of these things. But oftentimes they'll be like, oh, hold on a second, I've got to take my teacher hat off. Okay, now I've got to put my student hat on. And it's like, that right there tells me that you are not grounded in anything.
Right.
Because if you are grounded, there are no hats. You just are.
Yep. When we're grounded, right, all of these things float to us. All of these things are with us 24/7. There are no hats. You're a spouse, you're a manager, you coach, you're an entrepreneur, you're a friend, you're a parent, all the time. But when we're not, go ahead.
If you space those out again, they're all within reach, right? And so you don't have to hold all of the information for every single one of them within, like you don't have to be crowded with all of them, because you're authentically you. As they flow in and flow out of your space, you can let them go, because it'll come back, because it's you. It's still within you. You just don't have to have it like consuming you at the time. And that's what I used to do. It's like, oh, if I'm a mom, then I've got to dedicate and be a good mom. And if I do anything else, then I'm not a good mom because I'm not focused on my kids. Right. And if I'm an entrepreneur, then I've got to give 100% to my business, and I've got a 16-hour days and like all this other stuff. Right. And I'm not saying that there aren't times that I still fall back into that. Right. Because I frequent the basement of every single one of my strengths. Like, I'm a regular. But it has given me the power to let it go. Right. So as we're having this conversation, I could turn and have a conversation with my kid and come back here, and I will have lost nothing.
Sure.
Because I am me.
Yeah. I love that. You're grounded. You're anchored.
I'm anchored. Yeah, I am solidly Mary Howell. Like, I used to think, oh, I got to put my mentoring hat on so you get the full Mary Howell experience.
Right.
And now it's like, if you're standing behind me in the grocery store, you're going to get the full Mary Howell experience. You're just not going to get it for very long.
I love it. Oh my gosh, Mary, I love it, man. I love it. Oh my gosh, you're fantastic. Do you coach strengths? Because you really should. I love it.
Yeah.
A little bit. Okay, so as we're wrapping up here, what would you say? What would you say is the most thing that you've gathered from your strengths experience, your strengths journey? If you could sum up everything that you're saying, what would that be?
Like, what would I tell to someone else, or like, what advice would I give?
Well, first, tell me what strengths, like, I mean, you've talked a lot about different things. So as a whole, what has strengths done for you? Like this whole journey, this whole process, what has it done for you? If you could sum it up.
Man, it's hard to sum up. I think that it has given me permission to be myself and fly. Right? It has set me free to be the mom that I really am, and not have to be this other mom that I see on Pinterest, right? To be the wife, to be the coach, to be whatever, right? I'm no longer chained to ideas. right? I'm no longer chained to programs and to concepts and to, societal expectations.
Right.
Right. Strengths was the key that unlocked the chains.
That's incredible. Oh my gosh, that's incredible. So with that being said, and with everything that, because you, like you said, you went through a program that I taught. You also worked with me one-on-one. We worked together for 5 months one-on-one. What would you say? What would you say for someone that's starting out on their strengths journey, for someone that's trying to get on a strengths journey, for someone that's trying to understand? What advice would you give to anyone? Right? Really, that obviously you've talked about the value you've done for you, but what would be that advice that you would give to someone?
Get a coach. Work with Philip. Get a coach. Because I would have been lost and put it to the side, because when you're very first starting out, it is really, really difficult to see when you're in the basement. It's really, really difficult to even see when you would be in the ceiling of one strength, getting super distracted. And you actually need to be in the ceiling of this other one to make progress, and how to transition between the two. Because my restorative, like I said, is my superpower. It's also my kryptonite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. My individualization, same thing. My kryptonite and my superpower. Yeah. All of my top strengths are both my superpower and my kryptonite, and that's true for everyone. And so it is knowing that, but having someone with a trained eye to go, hey, you know why you're doing that? It's because of this. You know why you're doing that? It's because of this. It's because that self-awareness doesn't come instantaneously, right? That self-awareness comes from practice. That self-awareness comes from it being pointed out. And so it's like, just like you would get a coach for anything else, right? Just like you have to go and get a professor to teach you accounting, or to, learn how to play basketball, or to improve your golf skills, or whatever else. Like, this coaching will be the most important and life-changing coaching that you will ever do.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And one thing I always tell people to make sure that, whether if it's me, whether if it's anyone else, and I just want to reiterate what Mary said. When I took my assessment, I literally took it and I shelved it for 10 months. It was only because of inspiration that I got that all of a sudden I went and I read it. And this is so common. I've met with hundreds of people where I've done calls and worked with people. They took their assessment 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, last year, 6 months ago. They have no clue what's in there, and they have no clue how to interpret it, how to read it, how to utilize it, how to engage it. I love what Mary's talking about, right? How I can be in here in one strength, the balcony in one, the basement in another. How do I transition out from this one up to that one, then out of this one into this one, right? And how do I notice all those things? And so thank you, Mary, because that is the biggest thing. That is the biggest thing. Just like I can't go out and get golf clubs and not expect at least 1 or 2 lessons, right? In terms of, how do I swing this thing, right? How do I actually?
Not only that, it's like, if you think about the level of importance this is in your life, like, it would be as if you got into a helicopter, right? And somebody said, cool, I'm going to get you up to 20,000 feet and you take the controls. Yeah. Good luck. What are you going to do? You're going to crash. Yep. Right? There's too many working pieces and parts and everything else for you to not crash. And then you're going to get frustrated. And then you feel, well, I am just as broken. Here's the proof. Like, this says that I was good at this. Clearly, I can't even manage the thing that I'm the best at. So how am I supposed to do anything else?
Yeah, 100%.
And so it really is like, oh man, if you're going to pay for any kind of self-development, like, skip the next however many courses you need to skip and get a one-on-one authenticity coach. Like, if you can work with Philip, holy crap, work with Philip, right? Because he has an eagle eye for what we're talking about, right? He's like, oh, hey, Did you know you were doing this? No. I thought I was doing good. Well, you are, but you're about to hit a brick wall. And so he can spot the brick wall at 100 yards away and tell you slow down, or hey, make a left-hand turn because it's a dead end, where you would have just plowed through that wall and dove off the cliff. Right. And so that's the difference between having a coach like Philip and just getting your report and reading it a couple of times and thinking that it's cool.
I love it. Mary, you've been absolutely awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me tonight. We should do this again. We got to set up something like, we should do this again. This was fun.
So you and I, we're going to do a podcast eventually.
I was just thinking the same thing. Because there's so many places that we can take conversations like this: relationships, business, teams, marriages, right? There's there's topics after topics after topics that can spawn more topics because of the amount of awareness and stuff that's developed. So thank you for being here. Thank you for jumping on with me tonight. You've been phenomenal. You've allowed me to ask questions that we didn't even talk about in terms of your marriage and rest apart. And I know I benefit from that. I know other people that are on and other people that will watch the recording. And so thank you. I really appreciate you tonight.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks, Philip.
You're super welcome. Okay, we'll talk to you later.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. All right. That was, oh my gosh, super fun. So I can't tell you guys how much I love strengths, right? I think you guys can see that. I think you can hear it in my voice. I think you can hear it in my flexation of, I'm fascinated. And thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mary, for being a great example. We've done, if you haven't watched all the interviews, by the way, I'm posting them all on YouTube. And there's so much to learn about. Mary isn't the first person to talk about how it's impacted her relationships. She definitely gave a phenomenal story. And I know we've heard a couple other different ones that people have shared, but it's so great to see, what Mary has said. Mary's had a chance to not just work with me in a group aspect of it, but she also worked with me personally one-on-one for 5 months. And so her and I were able to do some really good work. She's well on her way to mastery, man. Mary's good at strengths. There's no doubt about it. So, but you can tell how passionate I am about this. And more importantly, I want to tell you this solves. So number one, I want to end on making sure everybody knows this is a performance and results assessment. This is not a personality test. This is not how I think, feel, and behave in terms of, how I learn, or maybe I might do this. I like this color. And again, I love what Mary was talking about when it came time to the framework, right? And the languaging when it came time to her and Rusty communicating on a different level, her understanding his needs, her understanding his motivation behind harmony and why it's so important to him, and seeing that dynamic dramatically changed a situation that could have ended like it always does, right? Bad, because we don't consider the way our spouses think, feel, and behave. We don't consider the way our kids think, feel, and behave. We don't consider the way our relationships, our clients, or the people we manage, we don't really consider the way they think, feel, and behave. We just ask them to do something, or they should think something, or they should act a certain way because it's the right thing to do, right? And knowing that we can make these adjustments can dramatically change our performance and our results when we clearly know the way we naturally think, feel, and behave. All right. And then again, I love what Mary was talking about. How do we use this word authentic? How do we go out there and say, I want to be authentic, but actually not be anchored to our authenticity? Are you anchored to your restorative? Are you anchored to your executing strengths? Right? If there are if the way we drive our performance and results are based on a combination of getting things done, building relationships, how do we influence people in order to do so, and what is our thinking process? If there's some combination of those things that drive our performance and results, wouldn't it be beneficial to know what those are? And more importantly, how do I stay anchored to them? How do I stay solid in them? Like when I say anchored, I mean immovable, right? Immovable to where like what Mary said, we're not necessarily throwing one hat on and putting it off. I'm going to be a spouse now. No, I'm going to take it off, right? But that we are all of these things at the same time without floating. Yay, I'm going to try this. Wee, oh, I'm going to float over here now, right? I'm a float, and not being anchored to who we are. Being anchored to who you are will dramatically increase your results, dramatically increase your performance. So from this point, for those of you that would like to know what it would be like to work with me one-on-one, I want to know, what are your goals? Like, if we look at this, what are you striving for? What do you want to accomplish? What is the very thing that you can accomplish that would dramatically change your life? There is something that you're working on. There's something you're struggling with. There's something you want to do. There's something that's so big and so massive that this is what you want. And that if this could happen, it would dramatically change your life in more ways than one. I would love to absolutely help you with that. I would love to know what that is and how I can teach you, in the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, to drive towards that, to utilize this, the way you naturally think, feel, and behave, to find motivation, to connect with your needs, to drive towards your performance and your results. If that's something you're looking for, if that's something you're ready for, book a call with me right here. Book a call with me right here, and let's chat. Let's talk. Let's talk about what we can do. What do you want to accomplish, and what's it worth to you? What is it worth to you to get that thing? And wouldn't it be great if you could do it without self-betrayal? Wouldn't it be great if you could do it in the way you naturally think, feel, and behave? Not the way Mary does, not the way I do, not the way someone else does, someone else that you see having success, but the way you do. That's what's important about this, is what drives your performance and what's it worth to you to get there authentically. Because when you get there authentically, what happens is you keep going, right? So often when we start a path and we're working towards something, or we even get remotely close and accomplish that goal, what happens? We get there and then we're burnt out. We get there and we stop. We get there and we take a break because all the cost that it took us to get there. But when we do it authentically, why would we ever turn that off? Now that I know how my woo serves me, I want to meet everyone and I want to win them over, right? I want to meet people and I want them to match with me. Doesn't mean I self-betray, because when I self-betrayed and I'm like, oh, I'll do whatever you need to do so I can win you over. I'll change whatever I got to change so I can win you over, right? But when I'm authentic to me and I'm wooing based on what's true for me, strengths, authenticity, when it's real for me, this is what I do, this is clearly what I offer, then people are able to connect with me. And so I want to make sure that you truly know the value and understand how important this is. Know who you are. Once you know who you are, reaching your goals and doing the things you want to do, you're not just going to reach them, you're going to surpass them, right? Mary, I know this about Mary. Mary is on fire. Mary is a machine. Mary is moving forward. And if you've listened to some of the interviews that we've done, people that I've worked with, they're also continuing to go because they're still learning, they're still utilizing their strengths. They're still seeing, right, where these connections are made that Mary talked about, where I need to interrupt here so I can move to here so I can recognize this. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you for joining me. And if there's anyone, even if you know someone that's taken the assessment that would love to chat with me about their assessment, let's book a call. I can't tell you how many spouses I've spoken to, or kids, relationships, friends, bosses that I've spoken to about strengths in order to help them understand the value of working towards where they want to go, being anchored into who they are authentically. So not just they reach their goals, but they can continue thriving in who they are. All right. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Have a beautiful evening. Have a beautiful weekend. And I'll see you guys Saturday morning at 10 a.m. for another interview. All right. We'll see you guys then. Have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.